Will Gray and Ben Eberl here with you for Golfbet. It's the last day of the President's Cup here at Royal Montreal. Just behind us is the 18th green, where Benny, last night, Patrick Cantlay said night-night to the international hopes. What might have been 10-8 with a Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim point. Looked like it was going to be 10.5, 7.5. Instead, we're looking at 11-7 for the Americans heading into the final day. They only need 4.5 points out of the remaining 12. You're looking at minus 1,600 for the U.S. to win the Cup. The internationals are about a 16-1 underdog to pull off what would be a crazy upset. Ben, what are your thoughts just from what we saw last night? The internationals had a chance, right? They tied it up. It was 5-5 after Friday. The U.S. was trading in that minus 200 to minus 250 range after going 3-1 Saturday morning. You're looking at minus 450, 500, and now all of a sudden it's pretty much game over.
It pretty much was night-night, that putt there on the 18th green. You've got to hand it to Patrick Cantlay. That was stones. It was just unbelievable to sit there and know what that putt meant and to absolutely do it in the dark, mind you. I mean, the only light out here was off the scoreboard, and I had some carts out here with headlights on, but he was able to just smash that home and really stick a dagger in international team hopes. And like 16-1, give me 1,600-1, and I'm probably not really thinking that the internationals can pull this thing out. Look, I hope they make it competitive. I hope they scare them today. But I think if you're looking at a market, you stay away from the outright unless you've got the 1,600 to put on or to lay to get your hundy. I think that you have to look at all these individual matches, which is going to be awesome today anyway. Right. We've got some cool stuff to look at.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're going. Certainly when you get into this dynamic, there's still 12 of the 30 points up for grabs, but from a betting perspective, you've got 12 micro markets right in front of you of 1 versus 1. It's rare to have this opportunity in golf and golf betting, so exciting to see. We talked before, last night and certainly heading to the course this morning about the strategy. It's not a surprise to see the U.S. leading with strength. Xander Schauffele, Scottie Scheffler, 2 of the first 3 matches for Jim Furyk. They're 2 of the 3 biggest betting favorites on the board, whereas Mike Weir knows that he needs points early, but in order to get those points, Ben, you're going to have to beat 2 of the alpha males on that American team.
Yeah, look, poor Jason Day and Hideki Matsuyama, right? They've got to go out early and they've been tasked with, go out and get a point, get some gold on the board so that the boys behind think they've got some sort of hope. But I mean, can they do it? I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, Hideki has been last almost in this field for strokes gained. He's been playing terrible, and he's supposed to be the leader. He's the one top 15 player in the world that the internationals have, and he has to go out against Scheffler. I mean, can you see an upset on the cards?
Well, a lot of the discussion Saturday night was about the Cantlay putt, and the point that he got was Xander Schauffele. I think not enough attention went to Hideki Matsuyama and Sungjae Im letting Scottie Scheffler off the mat with Russell Henley. Scheffler's missing those short putts. The internationals win 3 of the first 5 matches. They get out to minus 1,100 live to win that match. Scheffler and Henley were plus 600. They didn't win a hole the rest of the way, and the U.S. just chipped away at it. Americans won 5 of the 7 holes that they played on the back 9. That was a really critical point. A lot of people look to that the one that happened right behind us here in the cart headlights, as you said. But I think that Hideki Matsuyama really underperformed yesterday, and he's now drawing Scheffler, which is going to be another tall task. When we look at the entire 12-match betting card, it's not entirely a surprise to see the internationals are favored in only 2 matches. You've got Siwoo Kim over Keegan Bradley. You've got Sungjae Im over Russell Henley, and those are short favorites. You're looking at the minus 120 versus plus 100 market. The last match, we should note, Max Homa and Mackenzie Hughes, a bit of a coin flip, minus 110 on both sides. I think the expectation is that match won't matter for the final tally by the time we get to it. So there's a little bit potentially less on the line with that one, but you look at the card and you go through and you say, well, I could envision 6-6 or 7-5 one way or another, but the odds makers are telling you that all of these coin flips in these individual matches, there's a thumb on the scale for the Americans. It's a lot of 60-40, 65-35 in favor of the U.S. team, and that's a big reason why we got to this 11-7 mark that we have right now, and I think it's a big reason why the U.S. are such incredibly large favorites to win the Cup once again.
There are some dynamics in that, though, Will, as you just mentioned. The Cup will probably be decided earlier in that lineup than anything else. So then those back matches, they still have to be finished. Yeah. They still have to be played out to a result. So if you do want to lean to an underdog, you might want to lean later in the day when the Americans are already starting to celebrate because they've got the Cup in hand, and all of a sudden the international team is playing for pride and numbers, whereas the US is just trying to get to the party. So there is something to think about there. And also you touched on something that, a minute ago that I really want to get into. Scheffler was, plus 600 in that match yesterday. Live betting these ones is where it's at, right? If someone goes 2 down, it's not over. It's not done. So you can look at that and think, okay, do I trust that Scheffler or Schauffele or whoever it is can come back? If an American falls down early, they could be hit. That's where you could get some juice, right? You might go one down, you might get a little bit of money to jump on. Randomly, Jason Day, wins the first hole like he did on Thursday. That's when you get on Schauffele, right? Like that's out there.
I mean, there were 2 matches in Saturday's foursomes where it was the first time all week you had a team that went 2 down and ended up winning the match, and both of those went in the Americans' favor. It was Scheffler-Henley, and then you also had Morikawa-Burns that overcame an early deficit against the Canadian duo of Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors in a match that went back to this 18th green that's right behind us. But you're right, you get off to these early starts, especially these first 4 or 5 holes, how they have played out this week at Royal Montreal. You know there are going to be birdies, but there's still some other, you get the water all in the back 9 that really kicks in around the 14th hole. You've got some of the par 5 12th that played a factor during a lot of matches yesterday. So there are definitely going to be in-play opportunities if you didn't get the bet in before the match kicks off, and a lot of value to potentially be had there. But I want to go through some matches that we have our eye on. I'll start first, and we mentioned the internationals are only favored in 2 matches. I really like him in one of them. Give me Siwoo Kim minus 120 against Keegan Bradley. You talked about how Hideki has really kind of underperformed and hasn't been there statistically. Siwoo Kim has been the best player in the entire competition. International, US, whatever. If you're looking at a strokes gained data perspective, Siwoo has been the MVP through 3 days. I think that's going to continue. Keegan was a little hit or miss over these first couple of matches. He did sit a session. So I really like the energy that we're going to see around Siwoo Kim, having come so close on the 18th green here on Saturday. He made that memorable putt to win a match on Friday. So I think minus 120 is a great price to get a motivated Siwoo Kim who is playing well, clearly loves this course, and I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of Keegan Bradley, and I don't know that there's going to be a ton of motivation for him to necessarily get that point, because as you mentioned, the dynamics of this mean that the winning point could fall in a lot of different places, and it's probably going to be in those first 8 or 9 matches.
I love that call. It would have been my best bet, but we're going to go a point of difference. I'll give you one. I'm going on the fly here. I'm starting to feel it. I'm feeling the vibes. You mentioned the strokes gained data. Well, there's only one other guy on the international team that can really be mentioned in this thing, and that's Tom Kim.
Yeah.
And Tom Kim is an underdog against Sam Burns, right? I think that he can go out there and get that thing done early and potentially just put a little scare for just half a second if they can get some gold up on the board early in that US team. Tom has been talking the talk. Now he's got to walk the walk, right? He's got to come back and prove that the night is there for him, not for the for the US. Yeah. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a chance there to take down the killer of Sam Burns. The putting of Sam Burns, though, is tough.
Yeah.
He's going to have to hope that Burnsy boy doesn't have some of those putts getting hot. Kim's got to ride the wave. He's got to hope there's not an emotional dump again. That stuff. Emotionally fall backwards, right? We don't want him to have that happen. We'll see what happens.
Well, that was going to be my question to you with Tom Kim. That's hard for me to handicap. Is he's going to be through the roof with the energy. No one has played into the fans here in Montreal more than Tom Kim. They're going to be behind him on the first tee. They're going to be behind him early in that match as he's one of the first ones off. But what happens when you get to the 7th or 8th hole and you kind of get into the grind and you're looking up at the board and you see whether or not there's red or gold? I wonder what I'm going to get from that middle stretch of Tom Kim, whereas Sam Burns has been really good this week and, more importantly, is very steady. So it's more of a proven commodity versus I feel like Tom Kim has a high ceiling, but it also could go a little wobbly in the middle.
He needs to be up early, I think. I think that's the key to it. If he falls down early in that match, we might see a bit of a letdown from Tom Kim. But if he can get up and get the crowd going, if he has one of those moments that we've seen all week, then I think he can potentially maintain it, and he'll need to. The internationals need to win, minimum 4 of the first 6, and that's where all the strength is. And that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of those guys, but they have to get it done. As I said, Hideki has to turn up and at least take Scheffler down the stretch. He can't just give up a point. And that leads me to, I don't know, I'll get to mine, but I want to know you. What match do you most want to see out there?
I want to see that, as we said, that 15, maybe 30-minute window of you're squinting at the board and you're saying, hey, maybe here's an electoral college path to victory, essentially. I want to see, especially those 2 out of the first 3 matches. They're so critical. The U.S. is trying to put this thing to bed early, and I think that there's no mistake of having Schauffele and Scheffler in those positions. If the internationals have any chance, you need Jason Day or Hideki Matsuyama to flip those matches. I think that Xander Schauffele is the only favorite on the betting board above minus 200 in these head-to-heads, and Jason Day is trading in that plus 185 range. So, looking from an odds and a betting perspective, the biggest upset on the board would be the first match of the day. If that goes the internationals' way, maybe there's a chance, but I think that looking at how 2 of those first 3 matches go, and as you mentioned, how many red points can they get out of the first half, because then all of a sudden you can kind of take your foot off the gas for the last half.
I would absolutely love to see peak Jason Day and peak Xander Schauffele in that match. I mean, that
there's no time machine. There's no time machine. 2015 Jason Day is not walking through that door. You gotta figure it out.
I'm ecstatic. I want to see this match. Really, really want to see that first match, because Jason Day has every reason to turn up here, light a fire under him, and watch him go. He's a proven match play winner before. He's won the WC match play twice. He knows how to get it in the grind in these sort of situations. He's going up against Xander Schauffele, who everyone expects to win now. I mean, like you said, he is the biggest underdog of the day. Sat all day yesterday. Got to say, I think he's pretty peeved off about it, right? He's pretty disappointed that they left him on the bench. So this is his moment. If you are disappointed, if you think it was a mistake, get out there and prove it. You've been given the task of getting a point on the board early. You're the one who's supposed to bring this team up and give them a chance. Well, let's see if you can put your money where your mouth is. That's going to be fascinating for me. Is Jason Day going to turn up with that killer instinct, or is he already in the woe is me, I don't know how I'm feeling kind of attitude? So that's going to be fascinating.
Well, all week long, we've teamed with our friends at the Pat Mayo Experience with a little bit of a friendly head-to-head. I'm pleased to say that we're back. Yes. Golfbet is off the mat. We had a 7-1 day on Saturday, and it is dead even between our two teams. We both predicted 10 out of the first 18 matches correctly. We're going to go through on this graphic here, some of the picks that we've got, as well as what Team PME has, and Ben, they're going with the Americans. They've got an 8-4 American card. We're leaning a little bit more towards the internationals. We've got a few there where we differ, but it's going to be interesting to see, as you said, some of those matches in those 8, 9, 10 range. Maybe if the Cup is decided, or all of a sudden those could become pivotal. And how will those teams, how will those individuals respond now that they're outside of team play?
Well, things even like Mackenzie Hughes at the end there, right? Mackenzie Hughes is playing in front of his home crowd. It's big news. It's big for him to get a point on the board. By that time, as I said, that the Cup could be decided, and the Americans are starting to think about what flavour beer they want, like what type of beer they're having and what they're drinking out of the cup. And Mackenzie's going to fight to the end. So you think of that through in that back half. It has happened many, many times before where the internationals have won the singles session but still lost the Cup. I feel like that potentially is on the cards again today. You'll see the strength of the Americans up early. They'll get it done. They'll put it in the books, and then the internationals at the back end will get some pride on the board.
Good segue, Ben. I appreciate it. You're a professional in this. We need to talk through props and secondary markets that exist beyond even just the 12 head-to-head markets, because you still have lines on top point scorer, top captain's pick, top rookie. You got to do a little bit of math, especially on the American side. There's a 5-way tie for first and a 3-1 record to figure out who's going to be the top American point scorer. But as you mentioned, there are markets on who's going to win day 4, who's going to win Sunday singles, as well as correct score prediction. I will say, entering the week, we got it on tape. I said 17-13 US. I'm sticking to it. I will call a 6-6 split, which is around plus 700 depending on where you shop. So I think the U.S. is up by 4. They win by 4. They figure out a way to get there. So I'll take 17-13, and that's potentially, listen, you can get 17-13, you go 18, 12. Figure out a lot of different combinations that are, maybe a little sprinkle, and you can potentially turn a big profit. But you're looking at the day, right?
Yeah, I like the day. I think you get plus money for the internationals just to win the session. As I said, I think that's doable. If you want to go get more aggressive, you can go that perfect score. Like we said, I like 7-5 maybe for the internationals, which would be only a 2-point win to the US in the Cup, but it would be one that never was in doubt, right? I'm not suggesting that they're really going to push hard and make this thing super competitive, but I do think they could backdoor cover. Matty Del Vecchio, our colleague, that was his big bet at the start of the week. Sadly, I think he might get that right, and we're going to have to listen to him talk about it for the next 300 years. But I think that there is a market out there. The internationals squeak this one out. Maybe even if it's 6.5, 5.5. 6-6 is not bad as well, somewhere along those. I just don't think they get blown out in singles because of that dynamic we spoke of.
You mentioned that handicap market that our friends at BetMGM have had all throughout the week, and it's been interesting to see how that has fluctuated, right? Pre-tournament, it was minus 3.5, which right now seems like a pretty good estimate, but after Thursday, it got all the way out to 8.5, then it's into 2.5. We're used to dealing with point spreads in football and college and NFL during these fall weekends, but it's fun to see point spreads in golf getting back in vogue and just the dynamics that match play provides in this sort of special event.
Take the points, as I said. Take the points for all those reasons I mentioned earlier. I think that they'll be there till the end. They're not going to walk off and give up without a fight, and at the end, they're not going to give up when it is over. They're going to fight to the end and try to put some respectability on the scoreboard.
So we're thinking strength of strength early. You got to find the value late. Potentially, you could see the internationals winning the day, losing the war. That's kind of where we're heading.
Exactly, and I think you can look into those middle matches and try to work out who's going to be in line for the winning point, and decide whether you think that they can handle that moment. I think we saw that Sahith Theegala was in that sort of thing. Like, you might think, oh, he's going to win his match, but if you add the potential of that's the point, that's the one that you do, now do you trust him as much? I mean, those are the things you have to start thinking about when you're looking at those individual matches. And if you can do all that math and figure it out, you could do even better than we have this week.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Ben. I want one best bet for these matches. I'm taking Siwoo. I do think the U.S. wins the Cup, but I think that there are going to be some spots where the internationals can shine. I think Siwoo minus 120 over Keegan. If I have one match to pick, that's where I'm going. Do you have one that you feel especially strong about?
Adam Scott. Adam Scott over Colin Morikawa late.
Okay.
I think Adam Scott is going to add to his record. He's already taken over as the #1 international point scorer this week. And as he said to me, if you're here long enough, that's eventually going to happen anyway. But again, this might be his last Cup for all we know. I think he's going to go out there trying to make sure he leaves his last mark, last impression as a player on the international team in case it's his very last one. And again, being at the end, it might be a point where Morikawa doesn't need it, whereas Adam Scott's going to want it.
It's going to be a fun day. It's been a great week here in Montreal with the Golfbet team following along for the President's Cup. Hopefully we get a few matches that get to this 18th green right behind us, a little bit of the theatrics that we've seen over the last couple days. Ben, it's going to be a fun afternoon. We'll see how it all unfolds.
Let's get it. Let's get it on.